On the flight line, under the scorching sun, she looked like just another crew member, handling rockets mounted under the Apache's wings. The commander passed by, glancing casually at the prep until he suddenly froze. As she secured a warhead, her jacket shifted, revealing an insignia so classified that only a handful of people had ever earned the right to wear it. The busy noise of the flight line faded into silence. The woman everyone ignored now stood under a spotlight of stunned eyes. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories about hidden heroes, consider subscribing for more powerful narratives. The heat rippled across Forward Operating Base Epsilon, distorting the horizon into wavering mirages. At 110 degrees, most personnel sought whatever shade they could find. But Sergeant Leocadia Leo Vayner remained focused on her task, methodically inspecting and loading Hellfire missiles onto the Apache helicopter before her. Her movements were precise, economical, betraying years of experience that nobody on base had bothered to notice. Sweat trickled down her neck as she calibrated the targeting system, making subtle adjustments that the flight crew had missed during their inspection. "Watch it," grunted a passing soldier, deliberately bumping her elbow as she worked. Leo stabilized the missile component without comment, her face revealing nothing. She wiped the sweat from her brow with her forearm, leaving a streak of grease across her tanned skin. The technical manuals said these calibrations should take 30 minutes per missile. Leo could do them in 12, not that anyone had ever noticed or cared. Across the tarmac, Captain Finley escorted 2 visiting officers on an inspection tour. He gestured broadly at the base's assets, his voice carrying in the dry air. "And over there is just our munitions crew," he said, without even looking in Leo's direction. "Nothing special there. Now let me show you our tactical operations center." Leo continued her work, fingers dancing over the targeting mechanism that she'd noticed was misaligned by 3 millimeters, enough to miss a target at range. No one had caught the error, but then again, no one expected a grease monkey to notice such things. She made the correction without logging it. The pilots would attribute the improved accuracy to their own skills. The radio crackled nearby. "Alert all personnel, medevac inbound with wounded, ETA 4 minutes. Leo's eyes flickered briefly, a flash of recognition crossing her features before her expression returned to its carefully neutral state. She finished securing the missile and moved to the next without pause, but her gaze drifted to the horizon where the medical helicopter would soon appear. For just a moment, something like concern passed across her face. A group of soldiers walked past, laughing loudly. "I bet Sergeant Ghost over there hasn't said 10 words since she got here," one of them remarked, just loudly enough for her to hear. "Probably afraid if she opens her mouth she'll reveal she doesn't know a missile from a martini." The others laughed, not bothering to lower their voices. Leo said nothing, focusing instead on checking the wiring harness connecting the missile to the firing system. Her fingers found a loose connection that could have caused a misfire. She tightened it, wondering how many other errors she'd fixed that no one would ever know about. By midday, the sun beat down mercilessly as Leo finished her primary assignments. Rather than seek shelter like others during the lunch break, she moved to inspect the Apache's cannon system, which wasn't scheduled for maintenance until the following day. She had noticed an unusual vibration during yesterday's return flight, something subtle that the pilots hadn't reported and other mechanics hadn't observed. Major Harlow passed by, raising an eyebrow. "Sergeant Vayner, that's not on today's maintenance schedule." "Preventative check, sir," she replied, her voice surprisingly soft given her weathered appearance. "Noticed an anomaly yesterday during the return mission." Harlow frowned. "The pilots didn't report any issues." "No, sir, they wouldn't have felt it unless they knew what to look for." Her response seemed to irritate him. "Are you suggesting our pilots miss things, Sergeant?" Leo straightened, meeting his gaze with calm certainty. "No, sir. Just different specialties notice different things." Harlow stared at her for a moment longer. "Don't exceed your authority, Sergeant. Stick to the maintenance schedule." He walked away without waiting for a response. Leo watched him go, then returned to the cannon inspection. Within 10 minutes, she had identified and repaired a mounting bracket that was beginning to fatigue. Left unchecked, it would have failed catastrophically within the next 3 missions. Later in the mess hall, Leo sat alone with her tray of unidentifiable food. Around her, tables buzzed with soldiers sharing war stories and complaints about the heat. When she attempted to join a conversation about the recent operation in the Kadar Mountains, Lieutenant Wexler cut her off with a dismissive wave. "What would a grease monkey know about real combat?" he sneered, turning his back to her. Leo simply nodded, finished her meal in silence, and returned to her quarters, a small, isolated room at the end of the barracks. Unlike the personalized spaces of other soldiers, Leo's room contained almost nothing personal, save for a worn photograph partially tucked beneath her pillow. Her room had originally been a storage closet, converted to accommodate an unexpected additional crew member 6 weeks ago when she arrived. The isolation suited her purposes, though the message it sent was clear. She was an afterthought, a logistics problem to be solved, not a valued team member. Leo sat on her narrow bed and removed her boots, examining the photograph briefly before tucking it away completely. She checked that her door was locked before pulling out a small notebook from a hidden compartment in her footlocker. The pages were filled with coded observations, notations about base personnel, flight patterns, communication protocols, and security rotations. She added several new entries before concealing it again. The distant sound of helicopter rotors pulled her attention. She moved to her small window, watching as the Apache she'd worked on all day took off for an evening patrol. Her eyes tracked its ascent with a professional assessment, noting the smoother rotation of the cannon mount after her unauthorized repair. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She quickly composed herself, tucking away any trace of interest or expertise before opening it. Commander Alistair Thorne stood in the hallway, his weathered face unreadable. At 53, Thorne was a legend in his own right, a veteran of multiple conflicts with a reputation for straight talk and unwavering standards. "Sergeant Vayner," he said with a nod. "Commander," she replied, standing at attention. "How can I assist you, sir?" Thorne studied her for a moment. "At ease, Sergeant. I'm conducting personnel reviews. Mind if I come in?" Leo stepped aside, allowing him entry into her Spartan quarters. If he noticed the lack of personal effects, he didn't comment on it. "You've been with us 6 weeks now," he said, glancing around the small space. "Transferred from Joint Base Andrews, correct?" "Yes, sir." "And before that?" "Various postings, sir. Mostly stateside maintenance operations." Thorne nodded, though something in his expression suggested he was fitting pieces together in his mind. "Your efficiency ratings are exceptionally high, Sergeant Vayner. Nearly perfect maintenance record, no failed inspections, and the Apache U service has the highest operational readiness on base. Just doing my job, sir." "That's just it," Thorne said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Your job, according to your file, is basic weapons systems maintenance. Yet Major Harlow tells me you were inspecting the M230 chain gun today, which is specialized work." Leo's expression remained neutral. "I noticed a vibration during yesterday's return flight. Thought it best to check rather than risk equipment failure, sir." "And did you find anything?" "Minor bracket fatigue, sir. I reinforced it." Thorne studied her face. "That kind of subtle issue usually takes our specialized weapons techs half a day to diagnose. You found and fixed it in what, an hour?" "I've worked on similar systems before, sir." "So it seems." Thorne paused, then changed direction. "The crew quarters are unpleasant this time of year. We could relocate you to the main barracks where the cooling systems work better." "This is adequate for my needs, sir." "I prefer the quiet." Thorne nodded slowly. "Very well, Sergeant." "Carry on." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "One more thing. There's a high-priority mission being prepped for tomorrow morning. I'd like you personally handling the weapons systems check." "Yes, sir. I'll be there." After the commander left, Leo remained standing for several long moments, her mind calculating probabilities and implications. Commander Thorne was more observant than she had anticipated. She would need to be more careful. Outside her window, the sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple. In the distance, she could see the Apache returning from patrol, its silhouette growing larger against the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to observe and gather information. For now, Sergeant Leocadia Vayner would continue to be exactly what everyone expected, just another face in the background, another set of hands doing unremarkable work. Being invisible had its advantages. It was, after all, precisely why she was here. The sun hadn't yet appeared on the horizon when Leo arrived at the Tactical Operations Center for the 0600 briefing. She wore her standard maintenance uniform, neatly pressed despite the early hour, and positioned herself quietly at the back of the room. Several officers turned with surprise at her presence, but Commander Thorne's expression revealed nothing as he nodded slightly in acknowledgement. "Gentlemen," Thorne began, addressing the assembled tactical team, "and Sergeant," he added with the barest hint of emphasis, "we have a critical situation developing." The lights dimmed as a topographical map appeared on the main screen. Leo recognized the terrain immediately, the mountainous border region where their operations had been focused for months. "Intelligence has confirmed the presence of a high-value diplomatic convoy moving through the Northern Valley tomorrow at approximately 0900 hours. We've been tasked with providing aerial security during its passage through the most vulnerable section of the route." Major Harlow stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, this seems like a standard escort mission. Why the elevated security classification?" "Because," Thorne replied, his eyes briefly meeting Leo's across the room, "we have reason to believe there may be an organized effort to target this convoy specifically, and possibly from within." A murmur ran through the assembled officers. Leo remained motionless, her face revealing nothing as she processed this information against what she already knew. Captain Finley leaned forward. "Are you suggesting a leak, sir?" "I'm stating that operational security has been compromised. The ambush our pilots encountered yesterday was too precise, too well prepared. Those positions were intentionally concealed from our intelligence gathering." "With all due respect, Commander," Harlow interjected, "equipment malfunctions and intelligence gaps happen in combat zones. It doesn't necessarily indicate internal compromise." Leo watched the exchange carefully, noting which officers appeared genuinely surprised and which ones showed signs of controlled reactions. Captain Davenport, the pilot who had flown the previous day's mission, caught her eye briefly before looking away. "I'm not here to debate possibilities, Major," Thorne said firmly. "I'm here to ensure this mission succeeds without casualties, which brings me to our approach." He manipulated the tactical display, highlighting a route through the mountains. "We'll deploy 2 Apaches in staggered formation. Alpha Team will take point, following this ravine approach. Bravo will maintain high cover, providing overwatch." Leo studied the route with professional assessment. It was sound tactically, but something about the timing felt wrong. If her suspicions were correct, the enemy would be expecting exactly this response to the previous day's engagement. "Sir," she said, speaking for the first time. The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward her. "Permission to offer a technical assessment." Thorne nodded. "Proceed, Sergeant." "The proposed route requires both aircraft to operate at maximum sensor range to maintain effective coverage. Given yesterday's damage to Alpha's forward sensor array, there will be a blind spot in the northwestern quadrant unless we implement alternative configuration." Major Harlow's expression darkened. "Sergeant Vayner, this briefing concerns tactical approach, not maintenance limitations." "Let her speak, Major," Thorne said quietly. Leo stepped forward, moving to the tactical display with confidence that surprised the assembled officers. "The damage patterns from yesterday's engagement suggest the enemy is using a new type of portable anti-aircraft system with advanced targeting capabilities. Standard evasive maneuvers won't be sufficient." She manipulated the display with practiced ease, highlighting specific terrain features. "If we reconfigure the sensor package on both aircraft to operate in overlapping cycles rather than continuous sweep, we can maintain coverage while creating a detection profile too irregular for their targeting systems to lock onto effectively." The room fell silent. What she had just proposed wasn't standard protocol, nor was it something a maintenance sergeant should have knowledge of, let alone the expertise to implement. Captain Davenport was the first to recover. "That's actually brilliant. We used a similar approach during a classified operation in the Khyber region 2 years ago. Highly effective against advanced targeting systems." Thorne's eyes never left Leo's face. "And you believe you can implement these modifications before tomorrow's mission, Sergeant?" "Yes, sir. I'll need authorization to access the secure programming modules, but the hardware is already in place." "You'll have it." Thorne turned to address the room. "Captain Davenport, you'll fly Alpha. Lieutenant Reynolds, you have Bravo. I want full mission rehearsal using the modified sensor configurations once Sergeant Vayner completes the upgrades." Dismissed. As the officers filed out, Thorne motioned for Leo to remain behind. When they were alone, he secured the door and deactivated the recording systems with a few keystrokes. "That was quite a performance, Sergeant." Not many maintenance personnel could propose tactical modifications to sensor systems, let alone understand the implications for combat operations. Leo maintained her professional demeanor. As I said yesterday, sir, I observe patterns. Indeed. Thorne leaned against the edge of the tactical table. I made some additional inquiries last night through channels that don't officially exist. Do you know what I found? Leo remained silent, waiting. Still nothing about Sergeant Leocadia Vayner. But I did receive a highly classified message from Central Command, instructing me to provide you with whatever resources you require, no questions asked. Care to explain that? I believe you already have your answer, Commander. Thorne studied her face. What I have are more questions, starting with why one of the most elite operatives in the field has been assigned to my base as a maintenance sergeant. Leo considered her options carefully. Thorne was clearly too well connected to be misled any further, and attempting to maintain her cover might compromise the mission. This convoy tomorrow isn't carrying diplomats, she said finally. I suspected as much. It's transporting a high-level defector with critical intelligence about enemy operations in this region, intelligence that could end this conflict. And you're here because you don't trust regular channels to keep this asset secure, Thorne concluded. I'm here because there's a leak in your command structure, Commander. Someone has been feeding information to the enemy for months. Mission details, personnel rotations, equipment capabilities. Yesterday's ambush was just the latest evidence. Thorne's expression remained controlled, but Leo could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. You suspect one of my officers. I know it's one of your officers. What I don't know yet is which one. And tomorrow's mission is what? A trap? Leo nodded. The information about the convoy has been strategically leaked. Only those with knowledge of the actual mission parameters would recognize its true value and attempt to compromise it. So you're using a high-value asset as bait. The asset is secure elsewhere. The convoy is a decoy. Thorne absorbed this information, his tactical mind already processing the implications. That's why you were so focused on the sensor modifications. You're not just trying to protect the aircraft. The modifications will create a unique data signature in the system logs. Each officer's tactical console will receive slightly different telemetry. When the enemy acts on that information, we'll know exactly which data stream was compromised. Elegant, Thorne acknowledged, but extremely high risk. This leak has cost lives, Commander. 17 operations compromised in the past 4 months, 38 casualties. It needs to end. Thorne was silent for a long moment. What do you need from me? Official authorization for the modifications. And your eyes on the officers during mission prep. I'll be focused on the technical implementation, but you know these people. You might notice something I would miss. And if we identify the leak, I have authorization to take appropriate action. The unspoken implication hung in the air between them. Thorne studied her carefully, as if seeing her truly for the first time. One last question, Sergeant, or whatever your actual rank might be. That insignia Commander Thorne supposedly saw on your jacket, what is it exactly? Leo held his gaze steadily. You've heard rumors of the Phantom Protocol. Thorne's eyes widened slightly, the only indication that the name had significant meaning to him. Those are ghost stories told to scare junior officers. A classified unit that doesn't officially exist, operating without oversight or conventional chain of command. All good myths have some basis in reality, Commander. And you expect me to believe you're part of this phantom unit? Leo reached into her pocket and withdrew a small metallic emblem, placing it on the table between them. The design was simple but distinctive, a stylized ghost figure overlaid with the number 7. Thorne stared at it, his expression shifting from skepticism to dawning recognition. Ghost 7, he whispered. Kandahar, the extraction of the 12. A successful operation has no witnesses, Commander, only results. Thorne straightened to attention, his posture changing instantly as military discipline reasserted itself. What are your orders, ma'am? For now, I remain Sergeant Vayner, your maintenance specialist with an uncanny knack for sensor systems. Tomorrow, we identify the leak. After that, we'll see. Thorne nodded. And the real reason you're here? Beyond identifying the leak? One mission at a time, Commander. As Leo left the Tactical Operations Center, she felt the weight of Thorne's gaze on her back. The timeline had accelerated, but the core mission remained unchanged. Find the leak, eliminate the threat, and secure the actual package that would arrive not by convoy, but through channels so classified even Commander Thorne wasn't cleared to know about them. For the rest of the day, she worked methodically on the sensor modifications, implementing the specialized code sequences that would create unique data signatures for each tactical station. Private Zimmerman assisted her, still bewildered by her expertise but eager to learn. "How did you get so good at this?" he asked as they finished calibrating the second Apache. Leo allowed herself a small smile. "Practice, Private. Lots of practice." As evening fell across the base, activity increased in preparation for the next day's mission. Leo observed the officers moving about their duties, watching for any sign of unusual behavior or communication. Captain Finley seemed particularly agitated, checking and rechecking mission parameters with obsessive attention to detail. Major Harlow remained aloof, issuing orders with his customary brusqueness but avoiding direct involvement with the technical preparations. In the mess hall, Leo sat alone as usual, but noticed Commander Thorne observing the room from his position at the officers' table. Their eyes met briefly, an unspoken communication passing between them. Tomorrow would bring revelation, one way or another. As she returned to her quarters for the night, Leo performed her usual security check of the small room, then retrieved her hidden communication device from its concealed location in the air vent. The message she sent was brief, encrypted to standards that wouldn't exist officially for another decade. Asset arriving via alternate channel, trap set, containment protocol ready. The reply came almost instantly. Confirmed, Ghost 7. Execute with extreme prejudice. Leo destroyed both the message and reply, then lay on her narrow bed, reviewing contingencies in her mind. Tomorrow would be dangerous, but necessary. The leak would be exposed, the traitor dealt with, and the true mission could proceed. As she drifted toward sleep, her thoughts turned briefly to Commander Thorne. He was sharper than she had anticipated, and honorable in a way that had become increasingly rare. It was almost a shame that after tomorrow, Sergeant Leocadia Vayner would disappear as completely as she had appeared, leaving behind only whispered stories of the day a simple maintenance sergeant had commanded the respect of an entire base, with nothing more than a hidden insignia and a legend. Dawn broke with unnatural stillness over forward operating base Epsilon. Leo had been awake for hours, meticulously checking every system on both Apaches one final time. The unique data signatures were embedded in each tactical display, invisible to casual observation, but traceable once the mission was complete. All that remained was to see which officer would pass the specific information to the enemy. The flight crews arrived precisely at 7:30, beginning their pre-flight procedures with practiced efficiency. Captain Davenport acknowledged Leo with a respectful nod as she completed the weapons systems check on his aircraft. "Systems are optimal, Captain," she reported, her voice carrying just enough for nearby personnel to hear. "Sensor modifications are complete and calibrated to mission parameters." "Excellent work, Sergeant," Davenport replied. "The response time yesterday saved our lives. I won't forget it." Leo moved on to the second Apache, where Lieutenant Reynolds was reviewing the mission briefing with his co-pilot. Unlike Davenport, Reynolds barely acknowledged her presence, focusing intently on his tablet as she performed the final checks. "Targeting systems calibrated, Lieutenant," she reported. "Modified sensor package is operating at 98% efficiency." Reynolds glanced up briefly. "Will that be sufficient?" "More than sufficient, sir. The 2% variance is within expected parameters for the overlapping cycle configuration." He nodded curtly and returned to his briefing materials. Leo noted his tension, the slight perspiration at his temples despite the relatively cool morning air. Nervousness before a dangerous mission, or something else? Across the tarmac, Major Harlow conferred with Commander Thorne, both men watching the preparations with careful attention. Leo had briefed Thorne privately on what to look for, the subtle signs that might indicate the leak. Now it was a matter of waiting to see who would make the crucial mistake. At 08:15, Captain Finley arrived at the flight line, uncharacteristically late for a major operation. His uniform was impeccable as always, but Leo noticed a slight tremor in his hands as he reviewed the final mission parameters with both flight crews. "The convoy will proceed through waypoints Alpha through Echo," he explained, indicating positions on the tactical map. "Your job is to provide overwatch and respond to any hostile action. Command expects potential engagement at waypoint Charlie, but maintain full alert status throughout. Leo, standing just close enough to observe without drawing attention, noted which officers checked which specific data points on their tablets. Each was seeing slightly different sensor coverage projections, though the differences were so subtle that only someone specifically looking for them would notice. At 0845, the mission crews boarded their aircraft for final checks. The engines spun to life, twin roars that echoed across the base as the massive rotors began their deadly rotation. Leo moved back to the safe zone, watching as the Apaches lifted gracefully into the morning sky, banking toward the northern valley where the supposed convoy awaited. As the aircraft disappeared from view, she turned to find Commander Thorne approaching. "Maintenance bay," he said quietly. "Now." They walked in silence across the base to the cavernous maintenance hangar, now empty of all personnel. Thorne secured the door behind them and activated a signal jammer from his pocket. 3 minutes after mission launch, Lieutenant Reynolds accessed secure communications on a frequency not listed in the mission brief, Thorne said without preamble. Signal analysis confirms it was directed to a known enemy relay station in the eastern mountains. Leo nodded, unsurprised. "Did you capture the content?" "Encrypted, but our systems logged the transmission source. It came from his personal tablet, not standard military equipment. And the timing confirms it. He waited until after final briefing to transmit, ensuring he had the most current information." Leo moved to a secure terminal, entering a series of commands that brought up the mission tracking display. The Apaches are 8 minutes from the first potential engagement point. If Reynolds passed the sensor data as expected, enemy forces will be positioning based on the false coverage pattern unique to his tactical display. What now? Leo entered another series of commands, bringing up a communications channel. "Now we spring the trap. Ghost 6, this is Ghost 7. Execute Phase 2. A crisp acknowledgement came through the speaker. Thorne looked at Leo questioningly. "There is no diplomatic convoy," she explained. "There never was. But there is a special operations team positioned at each of the false sensor blind spots, waiting for enemy forces to reveal themselves." Understanding dawned on Thorne's face. "You're not just identifying the leak, you're using it to expose the entire enemy network. This has always been about more than one traitor, Commander. Reynolds is merely a symptom of a larger problem." On the tactical display, new signals appeared as hidden special operations teams activated their beacons. Within moments, the screen showed multiple engagements erupting across the terrain. "Ghost 6 reports all targets emerging exactly as predicted," Leo noted, studying the data stream. "They're moving into positions that would only be advantageous if they had Reynolds' specific sensor data. And our Apaches are well clear of actual danger. The mission parameters included a holding pattern at safe distance once they reached Waypoint Bravo. Davenport was briefed separately this morning." Thorne absorbed this information with professional calm, though Leo could see he was reassessing everything he thought he knew about the operation. "And Reynolds? We'll return to base expecting to hear about a successful ambush on the convoy. Instead, he'll find us waiting." The tactical display continued to update as the hidden operations teams engaged enemy forces across the region. Each position corresponded exactly to the false blind spots in Reynolds' tactical data, confirming without doubt that he had passed the information directly to the enemy. "We should inform base security," Thorne said, reaching for his radio. Leo shook her head. "Not yet. Reynolds isn't working alone. We need to see who he contacts when he realizes the operation isn't going as planned." They monitored the situation in tense silence as the minutes ticked by. The Apaches maintained their holding pattern, well out of range of the engagements occurring across the region. Finally, after 23 minutes, Captain Davenport's voice came through the comm system. "Base, this is Alpha Leader. Mission parameters complete. Returning to base. ETA 17 minutes. Leo activated the secure channel again. "Ghost 6, status report. All targets neutralized. 12 enemy combatants captured. Intelligence materials secured. No casualties on our side." "Well done," Leo acknowledged. "Maintain position until secondary sweep is complete." She closed the channel and turned to Thorne. "Now we prepare for Reynolds' return." "What exactly is your authority here?" Thorne asked, his voice carefully neutral. Leo studied him for a moment, then reached into her pocket and withdrew a small encrypted data card. This authorizes me to take whatever action is necessary to safeguard national security interests in this region. It's signed by individuals whose names would mean something even to you, Commander. Thorne didn't reach for the card. I don't need to see it. What I need to know is what happens next. Reynolds will be taken into custody and transported to a secure facility for questioning. His contacts will be identified and neutralized. The leak will be sealed permanently. And the Phantom Protocol? What exactly is your real mission here? Before Leo could answer, the distant sound of returning helicopters reached them. She checked the tactical display. They're ahead of schedule. We need to move. They secured the maintenance bay and made their way to the landing area, where base personnel were already gathering for the mission debrief. Leo positioned herself unobtrusively near the back of the assembled group, while Thorne took his place at the front, his commander's authority unquestioned. The Apaches appeared on the horizon, twin specks growing rapidly as they approached the base. Leo watched through narrowed eyes as they executed a perfect landing approach, settling onto the tarmac with practiced precision. The rotors slowed gradually, and the crews began their shutdown procedures. Captain Davenport emerged first, removing his helmet as he descended from the aircraft. His expression was neutral as he approached Commander Thorne for debrief. Lieutenant Reynolds followed moments later, his movements jerky with barely suppressed tension as he scanned the assembled personnel. "Mission complete, sir," Davenport reported. "No engagement." Convoy proceeded through all waypoints without incident. Reynolds' head snapped around at this statement, his eyes widening slightly before he controlled his reaction. Leo noted the momentary panic, the quick glance toward the communications building, the subtle shift of his hand toward the secure tablet in his flight suit pocket. "Excellent work, Captain," Thorne acknowledged, then turned to Reynolds. "Lieutenant, your assessment?" Reynolds hesitated just a fraction too long. "Concur with Captain Davenport, sir." Mission proceeded as planned. No hostile contact. Thorne nodded, his expression revealing nothing. Both flight crews report for immediate debrief and operations. Maintenance teams begin post-flight inspections. As the group dispersed, Leo watched Reynolds separate from the others, moving with forced casualness toward the communications building. She followed at a discreet distance, noting that Thorne was coordinating with base security through subtle hand signals. Reynolds entered the communications center, proceeding directly to a private terminal in the rear of the facility. Leo slipped in behind him, moving silently between the rows of equipment. She watched as he frantically accessed a secure channel, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he attempted to warn his contacts. "Problem, Lieutenant?" she asked quietly, stepping into view. Reynolds startled violently, his hand instinctively moving toward his sidearm before freezing as he recognized her. "Sergeant Vayner, this is a restricted area during mission debrief." "Is it? I thought you might need assistance with the communications system. It can be temperamental after flight operations." His eyes narrowed, confusion battling with growing suspicion. "I don't need maintenance assistance. You should return to the flight line. I'm exactly where I need to be, Lieutenant." Leo moved closer, her posture subtly shifting from the deferential maintenance sergeant to something altogether more dangerous. "Just as you're exactly where we expected you to be." Understanding dawned in Reynolds' eyes, followed immediately by panic. His hand completed its movement toward his weapon, but Leo was already in motion. Before he could clear the holster, she had seized his wrist, applying precise pressure to specific nerve points that sent him gasping to his knees. "Lieutenant Reynolds," she said calmly as the door behind them opened to admit Commander Thorne and two security officers, "you are being detained on suspicion of treason and espionage." "You don't have the authority," Reynolds gasped, still struggling against her grip. "You're just a sergeant." Leo released him as the security officers moved in to secure him. She straightened, reaching into her jacket to withdraw the small emblem she had shown Thorne earlier. As Reynolds' eyes fell upon it, his face drained of color. "That's impossible," he whispered. "The Phantom Protocol is just a myth." "And yet, here we are," Leo replied. As Reynolds was led away, Thorne approached Leo. "Captain Finley is also being detained." He attempted to access secure communications immediately after Reynolds. "Two leaks," Leo nodded. "That explains the pattern discrepancies in our intelligence. They were working together but feeding different types of information." "What now?" Leo looked around the communications center, then back to Thorne. "Now I complete my primary mission." "Which is?" "The reason I was sent here in the first place." There's a secure storage facility beneath the base, Commander. One whose existence isn't in any official record. I need access to it immediately. Thorne's expression showed surprise for perhaps the first time since Leo had known him. How do you know about that? Because what's stored there is what I came to retrieve. A prototype weapons guidance system developed in secret and hidden here when the facility that created it was compromised 3 months ago. Understanding dawned on Thorne's face. The leak wasn't just about our operations. No, Leo confirmed. It was about locating and stealing technology that could shift the balance of power in this entire region. Technology that needs to be moved to a secure location now that we've exposed the enemy network. Thorne studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. I'll take you there myself. As they walked across the base, personnel stopped and stared. Word had spread quickly about Reynolds and Finley's detention, and rumors were already circulating. When they passed Major Harlow, he snapped to attention, offering Leo a crisp salute that caused whispers to erupt among the watching soldiers. Is it true? One brave private asked as they passed. Are you really Ghost 7, the one who saved the Kandahar 12? Leo didn't break stride, but Thorne answered for her. Show some respect, Private. You're in the presence of a legend. The whispers followed them all the way to a nondescript maintenance building at the far edge of the base. Thorne entered a complex security code into a hidden panel, revealing a reinforced door that led to an underground facility Leo had only seen in classified briefings. I never thought I'd actually meet one of you, Thorne said as they descended the secure stairwell. The stories about the Phantom Protocol, about what you've accomplished, they seemed impossible. The best operations are the ones that seem impossible, Leo replied, because no one looks for what they don't believe exists. They reached the secure vault where the prototype was stored. As Thorne completed the final security protocols to grant access, Leo allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Mission accomplished. The leaks identified and contained. The technology secured. All that remained was extraction and return to base. What happens after this? Thorne asked as the vault door swung open. Leo met his gaze steadily. Sergeant Leocadia Vayner receives transfer orders. She disappears into the system, never to be seen again, and somewhere else, someone new appears, watching and waiting for the next impossible mission. And Ghost 7? Remains a myth, a story told to scare junior officers and inspire the best among them to reach higher. Thorne nodded, understanding the weight of the moment. It's been an honor serving with you, ma'am. Whatever your real name might be. Leo smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her features. The honor has been mine, Commander. Now, let's secure this prototype and complete our mission. Inside the vault, the future waited. And beyond that, the next impossible task for Ghost 7, the operative who officially didn't exist, but whose legend would only grow in the whispered conversations of those who had witnessed her brief emergence from the shadows.